What's the haps? I'm Meroka, and today I'm going to be taking a quick look at the Charnel House Trilogy. This is a set of 3 fairly short games by Owl Cave. And they are horror games. I've made no secret of this in the past. I'm not really a big fan of horror games. They don't really do a lot for me, generally speaking. However, this game has rather engaged me. Like I say, it's a fairly short one, so I've played through it from start to finish, and I did find myself fairly engaged by it, so maybe there's something a bit different going on. We'll have a look at the options menu before we get in. We've got a volume slider there, one single solitary volume slider, so music and voice and everything is all lumped in together. Not great, not ideal, but that's what it is. We've also got, before you get into the game, there's a pre-game launcher which does most of the graphical stuff. Default resolution claims to be 2560 by 1600. My monitor is not that large. There is a windowed mode which downscales that to half of that at 1280 by 800. You don't seem to have any choice over that. It's pretty much locked to those resolutions. Speaking of things that are locked, the frame rate appears to be locked at 40, which is kind of a strange choice, I feel. I'm not necessarily sure that particularly hurts the game in any dramatic way. It's like I say, it's not a complex game, so the extra 20 frames per second might not make a big difference to you, but at the same time, that's just a little bit odd. Most of the other things in that menu are pretty much compatibility things. If you're having trouble getting the game to run, you might want to tweak some stuff, but chances are you're probably going to want to leave them all at defaults. There's some graphical stuff, including anti-aliasing in there as well, which, I don't know, that strikes me as just being a little bit odd, given the style of the game. Anti-aliasing seems like a kind of an odd thing to put on it, but there you go. It's kind of got, as you can see, it's got this sort of very low-res pixel art kind of style going on. So it's kind of an odd choice, but there you go. Those are the options you can have. We've got 3 sections, as you can see: Inhale, Sepulchre, and Exhale. Sepulchre is already available for free on the developer's website. That's a game they put out a while back. It is completely standalone. It ties into the other stories, but can be played on its own and enjoyed on its own, and is, as I say, available for free. If you wanted it as kind of a demo, it probably wouldn't make half a bad demo for this game, if you're wanting a chunk of the game to try out and find out whether you'd like to see more of it. Got Inhale and Exhale kind of do tie together. If you're playing one, you're probably going to want to play the other, and you're probably going to want to play them through in order. You probably would want to inhale before you exhale, and Sepulchre does tie into the events of it, but as I say, it's kind of, it is kind of a strange beast. It kind of stands alone on its own. So I'm going to jump into Inhale at the start at the beginning. It's obviously a fairly narrative thing, so I guess there's some minor story spoilers potentially. So if that's the thing that bothers you, you may want to give this video a miss. But this is going to be very, very, very early stuff in the game, so there's nothing going to be too dramatic going on. There is a lot of voice acting. I'm going to have to talk over a considerable amount of that, I'm afraid, so I'll turn the game's volume right down so that that's not a major issue. But nonetheless, I'll let you have a listen to that at some point, because to be fair, it's actually a little bit of a mixed bag. Some of it's pretty good, some of it is maybe not quite as good. It is ultimately, when it comes down to it, mechanically speaking, a point-and-click game. That is what we have here, and it does suffer a little bit from the usual point-and-click logic kind of puzzles, but at the same time, it's not nearly as bad as a lot of them. You're not going to expect you're not going to expect Grim Fandango here. That's not what you're going to get. You're not going to get really strange, arcane puzzles. We are Alex, we are in our apartment, and we can have a wander around, and we can click on things, we can have a look at stuff. We have a bookcase. Let's have a look at the bookcase.
Books, games, a couple of CDs. Very me. And an asthma inhaler, for some reason. No idea who left it here. Might have been Sophia. Hope she has another. Although since she hasn't been here for over a month, I guess she does.
So, it's a point-and-click game. I know, mechanically speaking, there's probably very, very little that I could possibly show you. We can click on you can left-click on something to interact with it, you can right-click on something to have a look at it. It's pretty standard. And then up top, we have an inventory. We can pick up things, we can collect them, we can put them in our pockets, and then we can use them to try and solve various puzzles around the room. And that's going to be about it. There's not a lot more. I don't know what you would expect from a point-and-click game other than to be pointing and clicking on various things. We can have a look at the phone.
Don't feel like calling anyone, but I suppose I should listen to the messages.
You have 2 new messages. First new message, received today at 1:18 p.m.
Congratulations. You have won tickets to the Chronic on Thames Museum's latest exhibit. straight from the catacombs of Augur Peak. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to...
Tickets to an English museum? This is New York, kids. Not interested.
Message deleted. Second new message received today at 6:29 p.m. Hi, Alex. The nurse just told me you'd been in. Should have let me know. I'd have made sure I was here. It's been a while. I'm sure your dad appreciates it, love. You know he'd tell you that himself if he could. Call me on my cell when you get this. Goodbye. Love you. Bye. End of final message.
I didn't call, Mom, because I knew you would be there, and I couldn't do it if you were. I don't know why. Please don't hate me. Ah, screw it. I'll call her in the morning, right? Right. God damn it. Talking to myself. My therapist says it's my desire for an audience, for company. I say it's because I constantly feel like I'm being watched.
So there's a bit of the voice acting from some of the characters. It is a bit of a mixed bag, and the main character, Alex, is voiced pretty well, but then a lot of the other voices, it's kind of strange. It seems like they've sourced voices from a variety of different places. If you look at the credits, you look on any of their marketing, they promote a lot of famous or semi-famous names, but some of them are things like games journalists, and it's like, I don't know quite what qualifications they have for voice acting, and some of the voice acting just feels like it's been done potentially remotely on lower quality equipment. Some of the voices for some of the characters just genuinely seem like they've been done on lower quality microphones. It's as though it were done remotely and sent in from a distance, which is probably exactly how indie game development will likely work a lot of the time. But it does create for kind of a very variable quality in the voice acting. Some of them are people who have clearly done voice acting before and are quite competent. As a matter of fact, the current mainstay of what seems to be quite damn near every game that has voice acting at the minute, Ashley Birch makes an appearance, and Ashley Birch does a good job. But at the same time, you've got other characters in there that just seem like they either haven't done much voice acting before, or maybe just don't have an actual studio quality microphone setup to work with, and it just doesn't come through quite as well. In terms of the game's atmosphere, I suppose that's mostly what you're looking for in a horror game. There's no jump scares. I think that's what I mostly appreciate about this. A lot of games, horror these days, mostly just go for the jump scares. And quite frankly, this game doesn't. There's no jump scare to be found. Quite frankly, it's just mostly about the atmosphere, about the setting, about just generally making it kind of creepy and more setting an atmosphere and being weird. I think maybe what I don't like about... what I don't like about a lot of horror games is maybe that there's not much resolution to stuff. Things that are weird and creepy just kind of happen, and there's no any explanation. It's like, oh, isn't this weird? But I think I'm the kind of person who's just like, well, why is it weird? Why are weird things happening? And I'm not really sure whether that works for me too well. I don't think it does. But this game's a little bit better. It does kind of try to give some kind of resolution to it at the end. There are still some loose ends that I'm not happy about. If things are going to be weird, I want some explanation for weird. It's kind of murder mystery stuff. If you go and watch, like, Jonathan Creek, weird things are going to happen, but they'll explain why the weird things happen at the end, and I'm happy with that. I can take the explanation, as long as it's resolved. With horror games, it's often left open-ended without much resolution. I think that's maybe what I don't like about it. So this one does set up a lot of creepy things, and it does kind of resolve it. It's still the usual kind of supernatural, ooh, spooky things going on that are not really terribly well explained, but at least it's addressed. So that's it. Maybe got some credit from me in that regard. At least I can appreciate it in that respect. I'm not sure how much more there is to say about this game. I think this is going to be a fairly short video. It is a point and click that is kind of creepy, and I kind of dig it. I dig it a lot more than I've ever dug any horror game, to be quite frank even, to use my words correctly. This is your style. It's got quite a nice soundtrack. It's got an interesting ambience. There's no jump scares, which is a goddamn godsend. I kind of like it. There's not much more to it than this. If I dig any deeper, I'm going to start showing you puzzles and spoilers and things, which is why I'm just sort of pottering about the house, clicking on things mostly, and having a look at things so that you can see them. You can click through the text if you're not interested in listening to all the voice acting. You can click through it. As I say, the voice acting itself is a bit variable. You got a few famous names in there. You got Jim Sterling's actually in there, and I don't necessarily rate Jim Sterling as a particularly great voice actor, although he seems to play the part. He appears in both Inhale and Exhale, and I think he plays the part in Exhale a lot better than he does in Inhale. In Inhale, you listen to him talking, and it's like you don't sound like a very good voice actor. It's a little bit off-putting. However, he does play his role in Exhale considerably better. So again, it's kind of variable in terms of that quality. The puzzles, there are not really any puzzles. Like I say, most of it is just, it's fairly intuitive. It's like, she will tell you what needs to be done and where to go, and you will go to that location and do it, and it's mostly just progressing the story. There is one puzzle in this house, which is actually likely very close to the next puzzle I need to do, and that's kind of why I'm electing not to progress the story too much here, just on the basis that it's likely the only one interesting puzzle in the game, and thereby kind of spoilers, so I kind of don't want to show that one off. It's the only thing I got stuck on for more than a few minutes. Let's put it that way. Everything else is pretty intuitive as far as point and clicks go. There's not a lot interesting to see or do or to really befuddle you here. So if you're expecting Grim Fandango levels of point-and-click obtuseness, that is not what you're going to find, no. It's all about setting an atmosphere, about the horror game, as it were. And I think as far as horror games go, it's definitely one I appreciated, which I don't necessarily think it's turned me on to horror games. I still don't think I'm going to delve into the horror game genre, but I kind of liked it. Which is probably about the highest praise you're ever going to get from me about a horror game. I really think it is. I can't say I loved it, but I definitely didn't hate it, which is definitely more than most have got. Well, there you go. This is the Charnel House Trilogy, at least a very, very quick look at it. I know I really haven't shown you much gameplay beyond walking back and forth around my house, and it's one of those things that I'm just going to be talking over voice acting, which annoys the heck out of me. It's going to be showing off narrative, which I don't want to do because that's going to ruin the whole point of a story-driven thing. So there's not a lot I can actually fundamentally show you gameplay-wise that wouldn't ruin things terribly. So, pottering about the house it is, really, I'm afraid. As I say, it is a fairly short one. The 3 sections are probably somewhere in the region of half an hour long. Exhale maybe a little longer than the rest, so the first 2 are maybe about half an hour long each. The second half, 30 to 40 minutes each, I would have said they were, I think it took me. And then the third part, Exhale, is maybe a little longer, clocking in at somewhere around an hour. So there's not loads and loads of content, but I think it's about the right length. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It's especially for me, not really appreciating horror. I think if it was much longer than that, I'd be getting kind of sick of it beyond that point. So for me, I found it to be pretty much exactly the right length. It's about how long I would want a horror experience to be, and then it's done and gone, and it was a good little experience. So this is available on Steam, this is available for Windows, and it's available at £4.79 or your regional equivalent with a 20% launch week discount, so that brings that down a little below that as well. I do think if you're into horror games, this is probably a pretty decent one. If I appreciated it, I think a lot of other people might as well, to be fair, especially when you consider that this is not normally my thing. If it can impress me as someone who doesn't like horror games, that's probably quite a good little entry into the genre. Well, there you go. That's the Charnel House Trilogy. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Meroka. I'll see you next time.